In the heart of Rome, where cobblestone lanes twist like forgotten memories, the district of Trastevere held an unassuming charm. Early autumn light painted the ochre walls in gold, and the scent of fresh bread drifted from the corner bakery. For most, this was just another peaceful morning. For the De Luca family, it was the day their world would begin to shift. Isabella De Luca, the youngest daughter, was known throughout the neighborhood for her kindness. She was the one who brought flowers to the elderly widow on Via della Scala, who stopped to feed the stray cats lounging in the piazza, and who never failed to greet shopkeepers by name. Her warmth had become part of the street itself. That morning, she crossed the narrow alley carrying a wicker basket filled with groceries. Her brother, Marco, sat at a cafe table outside, nursing an espresso and reading the newspaper. He glanced up, offered a faint smile, but his eyes held a weight she didn't recognize. "Marco, are you well?" she asked, setting the basket down. He folded the paper, his fingers lingering on the edges, as if buying time before answering. "I'm fine," he murmured, though his tone betrayed him. From across the street, a church bell chimed, its echo trailing off into the morning air. Something in that sound made Marco look away. Isabella followed his gaze and noticed a folded envelope resting on the chair beside him. It bore no name, only the seal of an unfamiliar crest. Before she could ask, a gust of wind lifted the envelope, sending it sliding across the pavement. Marco caught it quickly, his grip tight, his eyes darting around as though afraid someone might have seen. The conversation stalled, but the silence between them spoke more than words. Isabella felt the first prick of unease. Something was wrong, and whatever it was, it had already arrived. That evening, the lively hum of the Piazza di Santa Maria seemed almost too loud for Isabella's thoughts. Lanterns hung above, casting warm glows on laughing couples and groups of friends sipping wine. But she was not there to enjoy the evening. She was there to find answers. She spotted Marco again, this time standing in the shadows near the fountain. He wasn't alone. A tall man in a dark coat spoke to him in low tones, his gestures sharp and deliberate. Isabella could not hear their words, but the way Marco kept glancing over his shoulder told her the conversation wasn't friendly. She moved closer, weaving through the crowd, careful to stay hidden behind the flow of people. The man passed Marco a small package wrapped in brown paper. Marco hesitated, then tucked it under his coat. The man placed a hand on Marco's shoulder and whispered something that made Marco's face pale. Without another word, the stranger melted into the crowd and vanished. Isabella approached her brother slowly. "Who was that?" she asked, keeping her voice steady. "No one," Marco replied too quickly, stepping back from the fountain. "That's not true," she said softly. "I saw everything." Marco's jaw tightened. "You don't understand, I say. Please just stay out of this." Before she could respond, he turned and walked away, leaving her in the middle of the piazza with the sound of rushing water and the sudden certainty that her brother was caught in something far darker than she could have imagined. That night, the rain swept through Trastevere, drumming against the shuttered windows of the De Luca home. Isabella lay awake, listening to the restless wind. She could not stop thinking about Marco, the strange man, and that sealed envelope. When she rose to fetch a glass of water, she noticed a faint sliver of light under Marco's bedroom door. Curiosity tugged her forward. Through the narrow gap, she saw him seated at his desk, the package from earlier now unwrapped. Inside was a stack of documents, each bearing the same unfamiliar crest she had seen on the envelope. Marco lifted a letter from the pile and read in silence, his expression shifting from worry to something closer to fear. Then, with deliberate care, he slid the papers back into the package, tucked them inside a leather satchel, and locked it. Isabella retreated before he could notice her, but in the quiet hallway, she resolved to find out what those papers contained. She didn't yet know that the answers lay tangled in secrets that had been buried deep in the city for years, secrets that could break more than just her brother. The next afternoon, Isabella made her way through the rain-slicked streets toward the Biblioteca Angelica, one of the oldest libraries in Rome. If the crest on those papers was tied to any official record, she was certain she could find it there. She slipped inside, greeted by the scent of centuries-old parchment and the hushed echo of footsteps on marble floors. An elderly archivist named Signor Bellini recognized her at once. She had spent countless afternoons here as a child. "Ah, Isabella," he said warmly. "What brings you back?" She hesitated before answering. "I'm looking for a symbol. It's an old crest. I think it may be tied to some historical society." Bellini's brows knit together. "Describe it." She told him, a silver lion, claws outstretched, beneath a crown. The archivist's eyes darkened slightly. Without another word, he beckoned her to follow. They descended into the restricted archives, where dim light revealed shelves stacked with leather-bound records. Bellini pulled a dusty ledger from a high shelf and flipped through its yellowed pages until he stopped at an illustration, the same crest. "This," he said quietly, "belongs to the Ordine del Leone, a secret order with roots deep in Rome's past. If your family is involved, you must be very careful."